Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here breaking down the Knicks 119-112 win over the Golden State Warriors. The deuce is loose. Deuce McBride, career high 29 points. Jalen Brunson shines again. Josh Hart plays all 48 and much more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube or that auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, because we are here for you guys 5 days a week. I'm Alex Wolf, I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And your New York Knicks won again. 3-0 on this West Coast swing, 119-112 over the Warriors. And look, I think most of us, after seeing the news that OG Anunoby was going to be out for this game, which I'll give the brief update on that right now, and then the full update later in the show, but he was out for this game, returned to New York to get tests run and, have his elbow inspected after feeling some discomfort the last couple games. So he was not available for this one, which again, I'll give the full update on in just a little bit. But without him and already being 2-0 on this road trip, which means no worse than a 2-2 finish, I think most of us would have been fine with saying, all right, well, it is what it is. If OG's not going to be with the team for these last two games, we're kind of back to where we were. Things sort of reset as far as the expectations department goes. And, we could just look at it as like, all right, well, 500 on this road trip was all we asked for anyway and could get it. But the New York Knicks do not ever look at things that way. And Deuce McBride certainly did not look at things that way. This was the Deuce game until the next time he completely blows us out of the water, which is he just continually has done this season. So props to him. Every time that you think that he's reached a point where he's kind of capped or that he's struggling or whatever, he comes out and has a game like this and completely resets your expectations for him and what he's capable of. He stepped in the starting lineup and more or less produced like a smaller version of OG Anunoby, which I think was exactly what this team needed in this game. He didn't funny enough, he's been coming off the bench and playing the backup point guard, and I think that sort of exposes his flaws a bit, as far as, not being able to necessarily break down a defense by himself or, like set up teammates quite as well as you might hope for out of a point guard. Yet playing with Brunson and playing with Hart and playing with DiVincenzo and playing with Isaiah Hartenstein, like really helped him a lot because he was with 4+ passers then. Well, I guess you could call DiVincenzo like at worst an average passer, but like Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Isaiah Hartenstein for their positions are all big time plus passers. And that really helped Deuce, I think. So let's first give Tibbs his props, because I think none of this happens without him making this lineup decision. In a pinch here, getting news that you're not going to have OG obviously stinks. And kind of could have been deflating, or could have just been an opportunity for Tibbs to go right back to the same lineup he was with before OG came back, which would have been obviously Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, Precious, and Isaiah Hartenstein. But luckily, Tibbs looked at the team that the Knicks were going to be facing, sees, okay, this is a team that starts Draymond Green at center. They start Jonathan Kuminga at the power forward spot. Like, this is not a big team, even though they rebound like it, which I'll talk about in a sec too. The Knicks managed to win that battle, but he looked at them and said, you know what, let's fight fire with fire. Let's throw a Golden State lineup against Golden State. So he goes with Brunson, Deuce, Dante, Josh Hart, and Isaiah Hartenstein. And like, never in a million years, if you would have asked me before this season without naming names or situations or anything, like, hey, would you ever see Tibbs playing a 3-guard starting lineup with an undersized 4 to start a game, I would have been like, no, I don't think you would play that lineup for anything. I don't think that would even play for 5 minutes throughout this season. And yet Tibbs went to it and started that lineup, and it was to great effect. I honestly feel like just a few weeks ago, even Tibbs's call here would have been to put Precious back in the starting lineup, but something has changed. I think it probably has something to do with the fact that he started OG at the 4 the last few games and saw like, okay, you can trot out a lineup that's not necessarily the biggest, but they can still get the job done with what you need done on the floor. And he did that in this game, and realized, hey, Josh Hart is big enough to play 4 and start in this game, and apparently play every single minute of the game, which I'll get into in a little bit. That Josh Hart played all 48 minutes, but yeah, the spacing that Deuce provided was crucial. The Knicks got out to an 18-4 lead early in this game, and I don't think that they do that without Deuce on the floor, between his scoring, but then also his defense on Steph Curry. Like, they needed all that, and it was a really smart decision to start him that ultimately won the Knicks the game. And it didn't affect the rebounding either. It was, it's kind of a surprising stat, but like the Warriors are actually second in rebounding in the league this year. And that's ahead of the Knicks, who were in 5th place. But the Knicks managed to win that battle 44-39. I'll talk about Isaiah Hartenstein in a couple minutes, but he had a fantastic game in that regard. Precious Achiuwa, even though the Knicks struggled a bit in his minutes, had a good rebounding performance as well. Josh Hart obviously ends with a triple-double, so like things are going pretty good for him there. They played this perfectly. It was like against one of the better tacticians and better lineup creators in the NBA, and Steve Kerr. I think Tibbs took a resounding win in this game, which I give him all the props in the world for. So let's talk about Deuce real quick too. Obviously, it's sort of his game here. Career high 29 points, 2 assists, 1 steal, shoots 9 of 13 overall, 6 of 9 from 3. Nice. And he played 46 minutes and 31 seconds, which was somehow not the most minutes played by a Knick in this game. Shout out to Josh Hart, who had 48. What's kind of crazy about this game too with Deuce was that I don't think he really pulled out too much new stuff, if anything new really at all. The shots were just falling. Like, that was it. And he was being given ample opportunity to take them. Obviously, if you play 46 and a half minutes, like, it, on a point per minute basis, I don't know if he maybe even bested his previous career high, but as far as making the shots that the Knicks needed when they needed them, he was super, super clutch. I mean, he made a lot of shots in the first half, which helped them build that lead and then keep that lead after Golden State made a bit of a comeback. They went on like a 10-0 run at one point. I think they went on another close to 10-0 run in the second half. And Deuce was just sort of the steadying presence out there, just making the shots the Knicks needed. He starts off with a corner 3, then hits a cutting layup, which is pretty normal for him, but a really nice pass from Josh Hart for that. He walked into an elbow 3 off the catch, just sort of a kind of casual, like 2 steps into it. It shook his defender just enough, but it wasn't exactly like a movement shot, I wouldn't say. Then a spot up 3 from the same elbow on the right side. And then things did get a little more tricky. So he did hit a pull up 3 from the other elbow, and then a step back 3 in the corner. That one showed me a little something. That was a little different for him. Came down, gets a one-on-one matchup off a quick pass, and then instead of taking a contested 2, takes a nice big step back into the corner and hits a 3 from there. That was kind of where you could tell that he was really feeling it. And it was pretty sick. And then hits a pull-up midi later on off a assist from Josh Hart, which is that's actually the quintessential Deuce shot. That's sort of the one that made him famous in college and, got him on the Knicks radar, I think. And then it gets a little 1 dribble 3, then a nice little transition dunk to put the cherry on top of this game. Just impactful performance all around. I mean, I think that he shaped why the Knicks won this game more than any other player. Maybe other than, like Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson have pretty strong claims to that as well. But without Deuce in this game, without getting the performance that they got out of him, I don't think they win this game. And quite frankly, like, had OG Anunoby been out there and still been hurting and, still been shooting the way that he's been shooting, that might have doomed the Knicks in this game too. Like they really desperately needed that extra shooting presence, and Deuce gave it to them. But on top of that, he drew the assignment of having to guard Steph Curry, which nobody can really make Steph Curry uncomfortable. It's basically an impossible level task to say to someone, "Hey, go out there and make one of the best players of all time feel uncomfy on the court, and make it so that he's not able to torch us in this game." But Deuce took that assignment and really ran with it. And, Steph kind of found his rhythm at a certain point in this game and, managed to sort of lead the little fake comebacks here and there for Golden State. So, it's impossible to keep him down forever in any given game. But Deuce really made his life hell for the first, I don't know, 12 to 14 to 15 minutes, something like that. And that was what made the difference in this game ultimately, because the Knicks were able to build that lead during the time when Steph was, not able to, produce the offense the way that he wanted to. And, that allowed the Knicks the leeway to sort of build that lead and then keep it throughout the rest of the game. I thought Deuce just did a fantastic job. So hats off to him, continuing to defy expectations of what I thought was possible for him coming into this year. And certainly after the trade, I think that he's proved that the Knicks' faith in him has been just, and Tibbs's faith in him has been just. And this was sort of like the signature performance so far this year. I want to talk about Josh Hart as well, though, who had yet another signature performance for him. 48 minutes played in this game, and then Jalen Brunson somehow bearing the lead here. Steph Curry in his own building, scores 34 points. Of course, we'll talk about Isaiah Hartenstein as well, who had a fantastic game. Dante DiVincenzo, and then that OG Anunoby injury update. So I'll get into all that in just a sec. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at Stitch Fix. And you know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what you can get from Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. It is the changing of the seasons. Also, weird changing of the seasons. I don't know. We're in what, like third winter now? And then we'll have third spring coming up soon, second spring, whatever. But with Stitch Fix, you can easily upgrade your wardrobe for all the seasons this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. Order boxes when you want and how you want with no subscription required. And they send 5 just for you pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You just keep what works and send back the rest. Your stylist always will send just right pieces and the fit will be on point. It's like they have style ESP. You're not going to know how they do it, but they will just get you. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. You don't like to shop and they save you that time and effort. Plus, you get outfits that make you look and feel really good. So, you don't have to put in any effort to feel good about your clothes. That's always a plus. And if you don't love something, you just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/locked-on. That's stitchfix.com/locked-on. Stitchfix.com/locked-on. All right, and I'm back in to keep talking through this lovely Knicks win, continuing this road trip in style, 3-0 so far. And Josh Hart, man, there was I don't want to like crap on him considering he got a triple double and played 48 minutes. There was nothing stylish about this triple double. It was, he just barely squeaked into that triple double line in 48 full minutes, 10 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists. But it's maybe the most Josh Hart thing ever to like barely squeak out a triple double in the points department despite playing 48 minutes. But even though he was definitely in timid mode again in this game, shooting the ball, he had a huge impact across the board. He wasn't timid in anything else but shooting, and that's why he ultimately played 48 minutes. On offense, I thought he really generated a lot of assists by getting all the way into the heart of the Warriors D. So, I think with Josh Hart, sometimes what we see is that he won't be getting respected from the 3-point line, and then he starts to drive in, and then I think sometimes he bails out a little too early to look for the pass to the to the perimeter, whether he's looking to kick it out to the corner or back out to the top, whatever the case may be. I think sometimes he bails out a little early on that, and that's where we see sometimes when he has those games where he struggles a bit more and is turning the ball over more and stuff. I think it's because he's not looking the defense in for long enough and tries to force those passes out when the defense is still kind of set. But props to him in this one. Like, they were not respecting him from three, and rightfully, he shot 0 of 6. Like, he just did not have that aspect going today. So he made sure to take it a few extra feet and like really get 2 feet into the paint firmly, and have that defense drawn into him. And he made enough shots outside of shooting threes, through getting inside and penetrating and finishing around the rim and stuff, that the defense had to respect him in there, if not on the perimeter. And then he just used that to great effect to set up shooter after shooter. I mean, he even managed to set up like Alec Burks, for example. I think that, it was kind of struggling overall in this game, but, managed to get him an open look. Managed to find Brunson a number of times, managed to really get Deuce going. Like, I think that as much as Deuce had a great part in this game by doing all the scoring that he did, I think Hart was really instrumental in getting certain guys going at the times when they needed to get going. And, he was feeding Deuce early on in his spots and really got Deuce's hot shooting night going, with the easy looks first, which then allowed Deuce to try the harder stuff later. Once he was seeing the ball go in the net, then he started taking the heat checks, and the heat was checking. And, things worked out great for Deuce in the end. But a lot of that started with how Josh Hart was setting him up to start this game. And then Dante DiVincenzo, he got going in the second half, with some key makes in the third when Golden State was making their comeback attempt. So, I think the Knicks owe Josh Hart a lot in this game, with how he set up his teammates and just the overall verve that he played with, as usual. I mean, 11 boards, 11 assists. Like, he basically had a Draymond Green type game, against Draymond Green, which is kind of hilarious. But like, the Knicks trusted him to be that sort of player, and he came through in spades. I don't think that he's going to give you he doesn't give you the around the rim defense and all that Draymond Green can give you, thanks to his size, obviously. But everything else was basically right there from Josh Hart in this game that you would expect from Draymond Green. And it makes sense why Tibbs kind of felt the comfort to play him in that earlier career Draymond Green role. Now Draymond plays sort of more the full-time center for Golden State, most of the time. But, the early career Draymond Green role was like playing that four, bringing the ball down the floor sometimes, setting up his teammates, letting Steph Curry work off ball, which Jalen Brunson worked plenty off ball in this game and stuff like that. So Josh Hart, big time effort from him. Again, 48 minutes, just absolutely insane that this guy continues to just go out there and put his body on the line every single game, playing these huge minutes. So big time hats off to Josh Hart for that. Jalen Brunson, though, somehow buried the starter, the lead star, and the top presence on the Knicks team to this point in the show. But I guess that just kind of speaks to how well everybody else played and how good the scheme was and everything else. But Jalen Brunson positively ho-hum 34 points after 2 straight 40-point games, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 12 of 25 shooting, shoots 3 and 9 from 3. I think it's pretty tough to go into Steph Curry's house and out-Steph Curry him, but that's basically what Brunson did in this game. I think his patience early on really helped him as the game went on too. Like, he abused double teams the Warriors were sending in the early stages of this game so much that I think that it opened things up for him later in the game. It made the Warriors more hesitant to throw that hard double at him because they knew that Brunson was able to pick it apart. Um, and of course, you have to give credit to everybody else that made their shots off of Brunson's creation. Like if guys are missing shots off of someone kicking out to them, then the other team has carte blanche to basically just keep, doubling that guy because they know that the other players aren't going to make their shots. So, it came down to the Knicks making their shots a lot too. But props to Brunson at first for not forcing the issue, not trying to, do too much as far as scoring the ball and whatever. And that ultimately helped him to have more space later on as the game went on. And it's kind of impossible not to see the similarities between him and Steph in a game like this. Like, obviously, they don't do everything the exact same way, but I really think there's a lot of common DNA in what Jalen Brunson does as a player now. Like, the spot up attempts and off ball movement were so lethal in this game and just are so lethal in general. And that's just a staple of Steph Curry, where he can destroy you with the ball in his hands, but he can also destroy you without the ball in his hands and jiggle himself free, manage to, get open looks that way and feed off of his teammates, which, Jalen did off of Josh Hart in this game, which Curry has made a career of playing off of Draymond Green as well. And letting Draymond, initiate the action and then kick it out to Steph in the corner or whatever. We saw a lot of that with Brunson getting most of his three. I think it was 2 out of 3 of his 3-point makes off the catch in the corner. So that's a very similar Steph Curry trait. I think he just also has that ability to read what the defense is giving him and either be a lethal offensive force or set the table for teammates, which he really did with Hart, which I'll get to in just a minute. But also one bucket in the third really stood out to me. It just really read like Steph Curry to me as well. And it wasn't a 3, funny enough, but Brunson at one point gets out in transition. And actually, I thought Golden State defended the transition possession pretty well with Green and Kuminga, but Brunson just kind of pulled out the shoulder and head movements, the little shifty, bits of his dribble and of his dribble package, and puts a little shimmy in his dribble. He froze Kuminga behind him off a very light screen by Isaiah Hartenstein. Just kind of it was just enough to make Kuminga pause for a second. That gets him on Brunson's hip, and then he just sort of shimmies his way around Draymond Green, who had, I think, the paint defended fairly well. And just got a super crafty reverse layup around Draymond where you just go, I don't quite know how he just managed to contort himself and put that touch on the ball and get that reverse to go. And yet he did it. Just a very, very tough make with very little given to him by the defense, and Brunson just taking whatever it was and finding a way to create and finish around the rim. I think that is as much as the elite 3-point shooting and 3-point shot creation and all that. I think that's as much a Steph Curry trait as anything that Steph Curry does. And it was cool to see Brunson just sort of pull out this game in that building and do it against that player, one of the best players of all time in Steph Curry. But Isaiah Hartenstein had a really great game as well, playing off of Jalen Brunson. So I want to get to him in a second. Some quick notes on Dante DiVincenzo, and then an OG Anunoby update to close the show. Just hopefully ease all of your minds a little bit and get us ready for this last game of the road trip and then going home to a pretty easy schedule. So I'll get into all that in just a sec. But first, I got to let you all know about LinkedIn Jobs. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And I say this all the time, but I've never really been in a hiring position for any job I've been in, but I've been wanting to be hired plenty of times. And every single time that I find myself looking for a job, I always go to LinkedIn because they just serve you the best jobs. They serve you jobs that you might not have even thought to look for yourself. And on top of that, jobs that are super, super great fits for you as well. So from a hiring perspective, if you want candidates that are going to be the ones that maybe you weren't even necessarily looking for, but you can have your job put in front of the best candidates for the job, that's how you can do it. LinkedIn Jobs. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. And LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, and I'm back in to get through the end of this Knicks game and the end of the performances here. And I mean, there were so many good ones, mostly in the starting lineup. This is a very starter-heavy game, if you couldn't tell from 2 players playing almost 48 minutes. But Isaiah Hartenstein was not one of those guys that played a ton of minutes and yet still had a huge impact again in this game. I think he's really starting to find his best self again after coming back from that Achilles tendonitis. And I think there is with him a correlation between the fact that he's not being taxed with a ton of minutes right now and is being able to just shine in limited time. He ends with 13 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of those offensive, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and then had a team high plus 26 by a wide margin. I think Jalen Brunson was second with a plus 13 in 25 minutes for Isaiah Hartenstein. So funny I bring up Brunson there. Well, not funny. I mean, I scripted this, but the chemistry between Hartenstein and Brunson, I think, was really the story of this game early. Um, Hartenstein had 8 of his 13 points just in the first like 5-ish minutes. And Golden State was really throwing like hard doubles or at least very aggressive shades towards Brunson with Draymond Green early on. And Brunson just kept waiting it out and then finding Isaiah Hartenstein with a mismatch. And I thought that really Hartenstein's fourth bucket was the one that really stood out to me that showed the chemistry between the two. So Brunson and iHart were, on the left side of the floor, working Jalen Brunson's side of the floor, obviously. And Podziemski was on Brunson, Draymond was on Hartenstein, and then Kuminga was kind of shading over off of, I think he was guarding Josh Hart on that possession, and Josh Hart was in the corner, which, was sort of the beginning of them not really respecting Hart too much from three, but they sent 3 defenders over to defend these 2 guys. And so, initially Brunson is sort of dribbling out towards the corner, and then he kicks it to Isaiah Hartenstein, who gets it for just a second and then draws the D just enough to kick it right back to Brunson. And then the defense thinking, oh, this is it. This is their quick little exchange. Like, we need to get out to Brunson here. Podziemski was already sort of like pulled away a little bit by Hartenstein when he got the ball, trying to, go for a steal, I guess. And then Draymond Green comes over hard to try to defend Brunson along, the left side there. And then Brunson just hit Hartenstein with a beautiful pass going inside. And of course, Draymond's occupied at that point. Kuminga was still sort of focused more on Brunson as well, because that was clearly the focus for them. And then iHart finishes, gets a nice easy bucket there. But it's just such a quick little exchange between those two. Like, that whole thing I just described took all of like 2.5 seconds. But it was, very, very effective, and just sort of speaks to the chemistry that those two are having at this moment. And of course, that says nothing of the rebounding and defense, which I think were stellar as always from Hartenstein. And, I really do think like it's good to see his minutes kept low again. I think on a night where some guys had to pick up some extra slack in regards to minutes, Tibbs showed some good restraint in still just playing Hartenstein the like 25-ish minutes. And, it stinks right now. You might want to have him out there for more, but the reality is that during the playoffs now, hopefully this means that, Hartenstein will be fully ready to potentially go out there and play 35, 40 minutes if you need him to in a game, but tendonitis is one of those annoying injuries where you kind of just have to rest it and, just not put a huge amount of strain on whatever tendon it is that is, feeling poor at that moment. And so the Knicks are doing that right now, and Tibbs is doing that for Hartenstein, which is good to see. And hopefully we'll keep him fresh as long as possible. Then DiVincenzo ends with 18 points, 7 of 13 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3. Really good game for him. Again, it was just a great team performance all around. So it's a shame to have to bury him this late, but I think, as usual, there's a lot of hoopla about him betting on himself by going to Golden State last year and all that stuff. Monica McNutt and Mike Breen were talking about that, how he actually took like less money to go to Golden State last year. And obviously it paid off big by, showcasing him great, playing alongside Steph and Clay and those guys. And, getting to develop his skills, getting to, train under Steph. And, it really, I think it showed in this game. He had a very, I would say, more Clay-like performance where he was just hitting the lightning quick catch and shoot triples, and also just throwing in some drives to the hoop there as well. He also drew the Curry assignment on the other end, so Curry was guarding him most of the time on the offensive end when DiVincenzo was on offense. And I think he took advantage of that as well. He did a really good job of realizing like Steph Curry being, who he is at this point in his career, having to carry the offensive load that he is, maybe isn't necessarily going to be the guy to be fighting over every single screen anymore. And they did a really good job of setting some little screens on the perimeter, getting, DiVincenzo free off of that, and then letting him get that just couple inches of space he needed to get off those quick releases that Steph taught him. So, maybe Steph regrets a little bit of passing along his knowledge after this game, but who knows? And then no real noteworthy performances off the bench. I don't think Precious did pretty well rebounding. it was pretty. It wasn't a, I would say, a huge standout performance for him though. I think he also had the lowest plus minus on the team, which maybe was just more of a product of when the mostly full bench unit was out there for just a minute. It was not the prettiest minutes that played in this game. Bojan and Burks both struggled shooting again. Each only played about 15 minutes, so kind of back to square one for those two after having a really good game last game. But it's a process. Hopefully they keep working at it, and maybe this next game in Denver, they'll get more minutes. I guess it just depends on if Deuce and Hart are having crazy good games again. If Tibbs is reluctant to sit them again, I don't know what the case will be there, but I guess we'll see. Jericho Sims gets a couple minutes. I didn't think he looked super great in like the 5 minutes that he played. So nothing really to talk about there. But there is something to talk about with OG Anunoby. So he did go back to New York. He had elbow pain, had an MRI from what it sounds like, which turned up clean. So Tibbs said, considering he went back to New York, I'd probably call it a slim chance he plays in Denver to end this road trip. But after that, who knows? Like the Knicks are returning home. They're going to play a pretty easy schedule for 4 games after that. So it'd be a good opportunity for OG to kind of get some treatment, these next few days and then be ready for when the Knicks return home and hopefully be able to kind of keep ramping himself up. But I would just say, like, to anyone that's freaking out, that's thinking, oh my God, he injured it again, whatever, like what's happening. It's recovery from surgery is not is not something that just, you snap your fingers and it's good. I know that sometimes with certain injuries, like say it was an ACL injury or something like that with a extended recovery time and all that stuff, generally guys try to be fully back by the time that they get back from an injury like that. But this is an in-season surgery. He got the piece removed from his elbow, the bone fragment that, had happened during the one fall that he had earlier this season. So it's mostly just that wound healing and the range of motion coming back. I mentioned it in the last show, but there's probably some scar tissue in there from what I understand. Like, I think that that's just how healing from this sort of injury works, particularly in a joint like that, where things are moving a lot and the skin is stretching and, he's finding awkward angles to put his arm at, during games and stuff like that. It's going to, take a little bit of time before it feels perfectly 100%. I'm sure they're giving him some good treatment back in New York. I don't think it's worth panicking unless there's some other bad update. But I put this note in my notes. It's not like and this anyone who's a fan of this team along with me will understand this. It's not like these are the Mets doctors talking about this. If this was the Mets and OG was a pitcher, I'd assume that his arm was amputated by now because certain teams are not great with their medical disclosures and all that. But the Knicks thus far this season, I think, have shown a lot of good restraint, a lot of good, I guess, judgment in terms of when they're allowing players back from injuries and when they pull players and determine that they need some more time to heal up, whatever. I think if you asked OG, he'd probably be out there playing, considering that he went out for the last game and he played, even though he was clearly in discomfort. Still went out there, even if the shot was off, he was still doing everything else well. So it might just be something where the range of motion is feeling a little weird. They're going to give him some treatment on that, but don't panic just yet. Even if he misses the next game, the Knicks come back home, and then hopefully he'll be able to play in that game. And so, upcoming schedule worth noting too: tough game versus Denver to end this trip. The Knicks really never play well in Denver, so I would call it a slim chance that they end up winning that game. But hey, I thought it was a slim chance they would win this Golden State game, and then they did. Then they have a cushy 4-game stretch against Brooklyn, Detroit, Toronto, and San Antonio. The first 2 are at home, second 2 are on the road, but not exactly the creme de la creme of teams there. So hopefully they can pad the standings a little bit. As things stand right now, they're fairly comfortable where they're at, in terms of staying out of that play-in conversation and even still being kind of in striking distance of the 3 seed. So hopefully they're able to keep building on that. But we shall see. And who knows what's going to happen as far as OG's updates. And I feel like we're maybe due for a Julius Randle or Mitchell Robinson update coming out of this road trip as well once the Knicks return home. So we'll see how that all goes. But no matter what, we'll have you guys covered here on Locked On Knicks because we are here for you guys 5 days a week and for every single game. So Gavin will have a good episode for you guys tomorrow. And then we're going to be back reunited to talk through that Nuggets game, whatever the result may be. And then, have another show, maybe an injury update when the Knicks start heading home to end the week. So till then, though, thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.